Hey, it's Eileen here. So, my parents used my $950,000 disability payout to fund my brother's Porsche, and as if that wasn't bad enough, they left me with nothing. But here's the kicker. I decided to take back what was mine. I took their house. But why would a family do this to their own flesh and blood? How could they betray me like this? Have you ever felt abandoned or betrayed by the people you trusted most? Drop a comment below. I really want to know your story. When did you realize that the people closest to you weren't who you thought they were? I woke to the sound of rain against the window. The air was thick with tension, heavy and suffocating. The storm outside mirrored the storm brewing inside me. I hadn't slept well, my mind restless, replaying everything that had happened the night before. The argument with my parents, the bitter words, and my brother's cold silence. Something was wrong. I could feel it deep in my bones. A nagging doubt clawed at me, refusing to be ignored. I stood by the window for a moment, my eyes tracing the steady fall of raindrops, each one marking time, but none of them could wash away the feeling in my chest. I knew that something was off, but I hadn't been able to pinpoint exactly what it was. Until now. I walked slowly to the kitchen, each step heavier than the last, the weight of the day pressing down on me. As I passed the hallway mirror, my reflection startled me. Pale, eyes wide, hair disheveled. I didn't recognize the person staring back. How had it come to this? The coffee maker sputtered as it brewed, filling the room with the familiar smell. I grabbed a mug, my hands trembling slightly. The letters, the numbers, the deceit, it was all coming back to me. It had started with a quiet, nagging question. Why had my parents been so eager to see Quentin succeed? Why had they made such a fuss over him, even when things didn't add up? I had tried to ignore it, tried to focus on my own life, my own struggles. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the money they had set aside for me, my disability payout, had gone somewhere it shouldn't have. I had put the pieces together in my mind, but the truth was too horrible to acknowledge. I pulled out the financial records from the drawer. My hands were shaking now, my heart pounding in my chest. There it was, clear as day. Transfers, withdrawals, payments, all of them flowing straight to Quentin's business. My stomach churned. I felt sick, betrayed. My parents had used my money to fund his startup, his lavish lifestyle. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't breathe for a moment, the room spinning around me. How could they do this? How could they betray me like this when they knew how hard I fought to get that payout? I felt a surge of anger. They had taken everything from me. And now, I was left with nothing but the cold, hard truth. My family, the people I had trusted the most, had lied to me, used me. The realization was a bitter pill to swallow, and it burned my throat as I fought to keep my composure. But I couldn't let it go. Not anymore. I needed to do something. I couldn't just sit back and accept this. I couldn't allow them to get away with it. I dialed Lena's number, my attorney, a trusted ally. I could hear the quiet click of the phone as the line connected. "Lena, it's Eileen," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I need your help. It's time to take action." The conversation was brief, but it was enough. I made my decision. I would fight back, and I would win. My mind raced with possibilities, the steps I would take, the legal battles that awaited me. But beneath the anger and determination, there was a deep sadness. This wasn't the life I had wanted. This wasn't the family I had hoped for. But I couldn't change that now. I sat down at the kitchen table, my hands clasped tightly around the coffee mug. The weight of it all was suffocating. The betrayal, the lies, the way everything had crumbled around me. But I couldn't let it define me. I had to reclaim my life, my future. I reached for a pen and paper, my hand steady now as I began to write. The letter to my parents was simple, but it carried the weight of my fury. I demanded that they return the money, that they make things right. I set a meeting with them, knowing full well that the confrontation would not be easy. The letter was sealed and ready. I stood there, looking at it for a long moment, my heart racing. I had taken the first step. Now, I just had to wait for their response. I stared at the envelope in my hand, wondering how my parents would react. Would they apologize? Would they deny it? Or would they try to manipulate me into forgiving them once again? I stood in the doorway, the rain still falling outside, my heart heavy with the uncertainty of what would come next. I sat at the kitchen table, my fingers trembling as I stared at the letter in front of me. It was a simple letter, but it held the weight of everything I had discovered. My mind kept replaying the scene from last night. The truth, the betrayal, the overwhelming flood of emotions. I still couldn't believe it. How could they do this to me? How could my own family betray me in such a cold, calculated way? The rain outside had picked up, its sound now a steady beat against the window. It mirrored the pounding in my chest. I ran my hands over the edges of the letter, feeling the smooth paper under my fingertips. This wasn't how I had envisioned things turning out. I never thought it would come to this. A confrontation with my mother, the one person I thought I could always count on. But here I was, the truth staring me in the face, forcing my hand. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves, but all I could feel was the burning anger that had been simmering inside me since I uncovered the truth. How could they use my disability payout for Quentin's lavish lifestyle, for his startup that had nothing to do with me? The betrayal was suffocating. The clock ticked on the wall, each second stretching into eternity. My mind kept spiraling, replaying the conversation I was about to have. What could I say? How could I even begin to express the hurt and anger I felt? What would my mother say when she saw the evidence, the undeniable truth? There was no avoiding it. The confrontation was inevitable. I had to do it. I stood up from the table, grabbed the letter, and walked towards the front door. My heart raced as I opened it, feeling the cool air of the storm wash over me. This was it, the moment I had been dreading. When I saw her walking up the driveway, I froze. She didn't look like the woman I thought I knew. Her steps were slow, deliberate, as though she was preparing for something, perhaps for the inevitable storm between us. I stood there waiting, the weight of the letter heavy in my hands. "Mom," I called out, my voice shaky but firm. She looked up at me, her expression unreadable. "Eileen, what's going on?" she asked, her voice soft, almost too soft. It was like she was trying to avoid the confrontation, trying to keep things calm, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it this time. "I need you to explain something to me," I said, my voice shaking with both anger and disbelief. "I know what you and Dad have been doing, the money, the lies. I need you to tell me why." Her eyes widened, but she didn't speak at first. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I could see the hesitation in her eyes, the guilt, but she wasn't ready to face the truth. She had never been ready. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, taking a step back, but I wasn't going to let her hide behind those lies any longer. "Don't lie to me," I snapped, my voice rising. "I've seen the bank statements, the transfers. You used my money, my disability payout, to fund Quentin's startup and his lifestyle. I want to know why." The words hit her like a slap. She faltered, her face going pale. She opened her mouth again, but nothing came out. She looked around as if searching for an escape, and in that moment, I knew. I knew that she had no real answer. "I did it for him, Eileen," she said finally, her voice weak. "He needed the money, and we thought it was the best thing to do." "You thought?" I repeated, my voice cold with disbelief. "You thought? What about me, Mom? What about my future?" Her eyes flickered with something. Shame, perhaps, but she didn't meet my gaze. "You were always fine, Eileen. You didn't need it as much as Quentin." "Are you serious?" My voice was low, tight with rage. "You took my money, my future, and you gave it to him. He didn't need it. He just wanted it. Eileen, please. she whispered, but I wasn't listening anymore. Don't try to justify it, I said. I know what you did. You've lied to me, to all of us, and now you want me to just forgive you? I threw the letter on the ground between us. The evidence was right there, right in front of her, and she couldn't even face it. I can't believe you would do this to me, Mom, I whispered, tears welling up, but I fought them back. I can't believe you would betray me like this. She didn't move, didn't speak. And with that, I realized she wasn't going to fix this. She wasn't going to apologize. She wasn't going to take responsibility. I turned away, my heart heavy with a sadness I couldn't even begin to describe. But as I walked away, I heard her call after me. Eileen, please, don't walk away from me. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. I walked into the living room and sat down, the weight of it all crushing me. I felt completely alone. My mother had walked out of my life, and with her, my trust in everything I had known. But this wasn't over, not by a long shot. As I sat there, tears streaming down The screen of my laptop glowed in the dim light, the numbers and words swirling in front of me. I scrolled through bank statement after bank statement, clicking between tabs, comparing records. It wasn't until I saw the same name, Quentin, that my heart skipped a beat. The amount in question? $950,000. My disability payout. My money. Funneled directly into his startup. I couldn't breathe. I clicked again and again, trying to deny what was right there in front of me. The truth was undeniable. My brother had taken my money, the money meant to secure my future, and used it to fund his endless dreams and schemes. This wasn't just a mistake or a small misstep. It was deliberate. He had planned this. Anger and disbelief twisted in my stomach. How could he? How could the one person I trusted the most betray me like this? I closed my laptop and gripped the edges of the table, my fingers digging into the wood. How could I have missed it all? I had been so focused on my own pain, my own struggles, that I didn't see the manipulation right in front of me. I had always believed that Quentin, my little brother, was different. I'd always trusted him to do the right thing, and now it felt like the foundation of my life had crumbled beneath me. I took a breath, trying to steady myself. I had to confront him. I had no choice. He needed to answer for what he had done. But what could I even say? Why did you steal my money? It felt so absurd, so surreal. Before I had time to process more, I was already walking toward the living room where Quentin was sitting, his back turned toward me. He didn't know I knew. I was going to be the one to bring it into the light. Quentin, I said, my voice shaking as I tried to keep my emotions in check. He turned around, his face lighting up when he saw me. What's up, E? You look a little pale, he said, a smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. The same smirk that had always made me feel like he was just one step ahead, one move away from the truth. Sit down, I said, my voice coming out stronger than I felt. We need to talk. The casualness in his posture faltered slightly, but he didn't argue. He sat across from me, looking almost too relaxed for the situation. I know what you've been doing with my money, I said, my voice cold and firm. His eyes widened for just a split second, and in that moment I knew everything I needed to know. He had been hiding it all, hoping I'd never find out. What are you talking about? He asked, feigning ignorance, but I saw the flicker of guilt in his eyes. You know exactly what I'm talking about, I said, slamming the bank statements onto the table. You've been using my disability payout to fund your startup, Quentin. You've been stealing from me. All these transfers, these emails. You can't lie your way out of this. I watched his face shift, a mixture of panic and defensiveness clouding his features. You don't get it, Eileen, he started, his voice low. This isn't like that. I needed the money. I was trying to build something for all of us, something that could help the whole family. Don't feed me that bullshit, I snapped, my anger rising. You used my money for your own personal gain, and you didn't even have the decency to ask me first. What the hell makes you think you have the right to do that? He stood up abruptly, clearly frustrated. You just don't understand. This is my future, E. I was going to pay you back, eventually. This was the only way. I didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed bitterly. You didn't mean to hurt me? That's what you're going with? My voice wavered as I stood up, the weight of his words crushing me. You didn't mean to hurt me? You took everything, Quentin, everything that was mine. And now you think I'm just supposed to forgive you? Quentin's eyes dropped to the floor. For the first time, I saw a crack in his bravado. But it was too little, too late. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't call the cops, Quentin, I said, my heart pounding in my chest. Why shouldn't I make you pay for this? He hesitated. I could see the wheels turning in his head, but his next words were a feeble attempt at saving himself. I'm sorry, E, I was wrong. But please don't. No, I cut him off. I've had enough of your lies. I stepped back, my mind spinning. He wasn't even sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry he got caught. I felt like I had no control over the situation. This wasn't how I imagined things would go. But one thing was certain. I couldn't let this slide. This wasn't just about money. This was about trust. This was about the betrayal of everything I had ever known. I grabbed my phone, the weight of my decision sinking in. I needed to take action. I couldn't let him get away with this. I quickly dialed Lena, my lawyer. It was time to fight back. It was time to get justice. I stood at the threshold of the living room, my breath coming in short bursts. Kayla was sitting on the couch, flipping through her phone, blissfully unaware of what was about to come. I had to do this. There was no going back. The truth needed to come out, no matter how much it hurt. Kayla, I said, my voice trembling despite my best efforts. We need to talk. She glanced up, raising an eyebrow. What's up? You look like you've seen a ghost? My fists clenched at my sides. She had no idea, none at all. This isn't a joke, Kayla. I know what you've been doing. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of something, guilt maybe, passing through them before she masked it with a casual smile. What are you talking about, E? What's going on? I didn't want to waste any more time with pleasantries. You know damn well what I'm talking about. You're involved in this scheme. You've been helping Quentin and Mom hide things from me. My money. The $950,000? How long did you think you could get away with it? Kayla froze, her fingers stilling on the screen of her phone. What? I don't know what you're talking about. She stood up, taking a step toward me, but I wasn't backing down. I wasn't going to let her lie to me. You've been lying to me, Kayla. I've seen the bank statements. You can't cover this up anymore. My voice was sharp now, cutting through the tension between us. You were in on this from the start, weren't you? You helped him, steal my money. She opened her mouth to protest, but the words wouldn't come. Finally, after a long pause, she sighed, her shoulders slumping. Okay, fine. Yes, I helped, but it wasn't what you think. I was just doing what I was told. Doing what you were told? I repeated incredulously. You've been helping them, stealing from me, and you want me to believe that it was all just because someone told you to? Kayla crossed her arms, her face twisting with a mix of frustration and guilt. You don't get it, E. Quentin. He's my brother. He said it was all for the family, that we needed to support him. I thought I was helping, but everything just got so messy. You don't get it, I snapped. You weren't helping. You were enabling him. You were part of this. You let him use my money. How could you do that? She flinched, but quickly composed herself. I didn't mean to hurt you, E. I thought it was the right thing to do at the time. The bitterness in my throat burned. The right thing? Stealing from me is the right thing? I took a step forward, my anger flaring. You've betrayed me. You've betrayed the whole family, and for what? So Quentin could get his little startup? So he could live in luxury while I'm left here, struggling? Kayla looked away, her face flushed with shame. I didn't want it to go this far, she whispered. I thought we could fix it. But Quentin, he got so wrapped up in everything. I never meant for things to spiral out of control. I shook my head, disbelief washing over me. You're still trying to justify it, aren't you? You still think it was okay. You don't get it. You've ruined everything, not just for me, but for this family. Then, just as I thought I'd heard enough, she spoke again, her voice shaking. There's more, E, more than you know. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean, more? She hesitated, looking over her shoulder as if searching for some sort of escape, but there was nowhere to go. I didn't just help with the money. I was involved in the whole thing, the whole plan. Quentin, he wasn't the only one calling the shots. He was just the front. She stopped herself, eyes wide as she realized she'd said too much. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. You were involved? You mean to tell me this wasn't just about money? This was about control? About power? Kayla nodded, her face pale. It wasn't just about the money, E. It was about more than that. Quentin has a plan, a bigger one. And I was just part of it. He's been working with Dad and Mom. It's all about controlling the family, the future. A sick feeling twisted in my stomach. Everything was worse than I had imagined. My brother, my mother, Kayla, none of them cared about me, about my future. This had always been about power, about manipulating me to get what they wanted. I took a step back, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. You've all been playing me. You've all been lying, scheming, and I've been too blind to see it. Kayla looked away, unable to meet my gaze. I didn't want to hurt you, E, but I was just following orders. Quentin promised it would all be okay, that you would understand eventually. Understand? My voice was low, ice cold. No, Kayla, I'm done. You and Quentin can have your little game, but I'm not going down without a fight. You can't just take everything from me and expect me to roll over. I turned and walked toward the door, my mind racing. There was still so much to uncover, and the silence of the house was almost unbearable as I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of legal papers in front of me. My family, the ones I had trusted for so long, had turned their backs on me. My mother was gone. Quentin was nowhere to be found. And my father? He hadn't even bothered to call. The weight of it all pressed down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I could feel the loneliness creeping in, the coldness that had seeped into every corner of my life since the betrayal was exposed. I hadn't heard a word from anyone, not even a message from my mother, who had always been the one to calm me when things felt too heavy. I kept telling myself that I would see her soon, that she would come to her senses and apologize. But that day never came. The phone in front of me buzzed, jolting me out of my thoughts. I picked it up, seeing the name of my attorney, Lena, flashing across the screen. I answered quickly, eager for any distraction, any hint of a solution to the mess my life had become. Eileen, Lena's voice came through, firm and reassuring. I've been going over everything you've sent. We're ready to move forward with the case. I've got the evidence we need to take this to court, but I need you to be prepared. This is going to get ugly. I swallowed hard, feeling my stomach twist in knots. I'm ready, I said, though the words felt hollow. What choice did I have? Lena continued. We'll file the paperwork by the end of the week, but I need to ask you something important. Have you been able to contact your mother? My heart stopped. Number, she's gone. I've tried everything. No one knows where she is. Lena's voice softened, but the edge of concern was clear. That complicates things. If she's gone missing, it could affect the case. It's one more piece of the puzzle that we need to solve. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. The last thing I needed was another complication. I had enough to deal with already. I hung up the phone with a sinking feeling in my chest. The idea of going through this battle alone without my family was unbearable. I'd already lost so much. My trust, my sense of security, my own sense of self. Now, I was on the verge of losing even more. The days that followed were a blur of phone calls, legal documents, and sleepless nights. I was doing what I had to do. But with every step forward, I couldn't shake the feeling that the weight of my family's betrayal was crushing me. One night, After another long, grueling conversation with Lena, I sat in the dark, staring at the stack of documents in front of me. It was overwhelming, the sheer amount of work ahead. The fight felt endless, and yet I knew I had to keep going. I had no choice. Then the phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. Hesitating for only a moment, I picked it up. "Eileen?" The voice was unfamiliar, but it sounded urgent. "I think I know where your mother is." A rush of hope surged through me, followed by a flood of questions. "Who is this? How do you know where she is?" The voice paused, as if choosing words carefully. "I'm someone who has information. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m. I'll explain everything. But you need to trust me." I couldn't think clearly. My mind was racing with a mix of disbelief, hope, and fear. "How do I know this isn't a trick? How do I know I can trust you?" "You don't," the voice replied flatly. "But you'll have to take a chance if you want answers. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., the old diner on Main Street." Before I could respond, the line went dead. I sat there in stunned silence, the phone still pressed against my ear. For a moment, I wasn't sure if I should believe it. I had been lied to so many times that I didn't know who to trust anymore. But the chance to find my mother, to finally understand why she had disappeared, was too much to ignore. I stood up, feeling the weight of the decision settling in. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the family I had lost, and the desperate need to find some semblance of closure. I didn't know what would happen tomorrow, but I knew that whatever it was, it would change everything. I stood alone in the quiet of my apartment, a feeling of calmness creeping over me despite the storm brewing inside. The air felt thick with anticipation as I prepared for what came next. The truth had been laid bare. My family, my own flesh and blood, had used me as a pawn in their twisted game of control. The betrayal ran deep, but it had also opened my eyes. I wasn't just the victim anymore. I was the one holding the power. And it was time to wield it. I gathered the documents on the kitchen counter, my fingers brushing over the pieces of evidence that would finally expose Quentin for the thief and manipulator he was. I had seen the transfers, the secret accounts, the lifestyle he had been living at my expense. For months he had hidden behind lies and charm, pulling strings in the shadows while I was none the wiser. But now, the truth was mine to reveal. The weight of the papers felt satisfying in my hands. This was the beginning of my revenge, the first step toward regaining control. There was no turning back now. I had the power to destroy him, to tear down the house of cards he had built with my money. The satisfaction I felt was immediate, but so was the cold fear creeping in. What if this backfired? What if he had something up his sleeve I didn't know about? I picked up my phone and dialed Lena's number, the one person I trusted in all of this. She answered on the second ring. "I've got him," I said, my voice steady, though the adrenaline was coursing through me. "I've got the evidence. It's all here." There was a moment of silence on the other end before Lena spoke. "Are you sure? This is big, Eileen. You can't just throw this out there without thinking it through. Once you expose him, there's no going back." "I don't care," I replied, my resolve growing stronger. "He's going down. I'm done letting him use me, letting him take what's mine. He's not going to get away with it." Lena hesitated again. "All right, we'll take it to the press if that's the route you want. But remember, this is going to be a war, a very public war. Are you ready for that?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle on my shoulders. I've been living in this nightmare for far too long. It's time to wake up and fight. As I hung up, I felt the heavy weight of my choices, but for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel burdensome. It felt like freedom. The path ahead would be difficult, but I could handle it. I had to. The next day, I sat across from Lena in her office, the evidence spread out in front of us. It was undeniable. Quentin's manipulation was clear. I could feel the fire burning inside me as I prepared for what was next. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about standing up for myself, about refusing to be the victim any longer. Lena typed furiously on her laptop, crafting the statement that would expose Quentin's actions. I watched her work, my mind racing. What was he going to do when he found out? Would he back down, or would he come after me with everything he had? As if on cue, just as we were finalizing the statement, I received an email. The subject line made my stomach drop. Legal representation, Quentin Williams. My heart skipped a beat as I opened it, reading through the message from his attorney. The message was short but direct. We are aware of the allegations you intend to make public. Please be advised that Quentin Williams is legally protected and will be pursuing all necessary actions to protect his interests. I stared at the email, feeling the first wave of doubt creep in. This wasn't going to be easy. I had underestimated how far Quentin would go to protect himself, but I wouldn't back down. Not now. Lena, I said, my voice tight with frustration. He's got legal protection. He's going to fight this tooth and nail. Lena nodded, her expression unreadable. I figured as much, but we're not backing down either. You've got the truth on your side, Eileen. It's going to be a fight, but it's not over. As I prepared for the next phase, I realized that this wasn't just about taking back what was mine. It was about something deeper, something I hadn't fully realized until now. Quentin had tried to destroy me, to strip away everything I had, but what he didn't understand was that I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for my dignity, my peace, and my future. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. It was time to play the long game. I would find every weakness, every crack in his armor, and I would exploit them all. But just as I felt a sense of control returning to me, my phone buzzed with another notification. I clicked it open without thinking, only to be greeted by the most devastating message I could have imagined. Quentin had struck back. He had leaked private family secrets, things that only my parents and I knew, and he was using them to destroy my credibility. The message was clear. He would do whatever it took. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. The silence in the room was suffocating, and my mind raced as I prepared for the final confrontation. This wasn't just another argument. This was the culmination of everything I had been through, the lies, the betrayal, the secrecy, and now it was all coming to a head. My father, the one who had remained silent throughout this entire nightmare, was about to face me. The one person who held the final pieces of the puzzle, the one who knew everything but chose to stay in the shadows. I stood in front of the door to his study, my hand gripping the handle so tightly my knuckles ached. My heart was pounding in my chest, and my palms were clammy. This was it, the moment where the truth would either destroy me or set me free. I had come this far, and now I had to face the man who had orchestrated it all. I took a deep breath and opened the door. He looked up from his desk, his expression unreadable, as always. My father was a man of few words, a man who never seemed to show emotion. But today, I could see the flicker of something in his eyes. Fear, perhaps, or maybe just the realization that the time for silence had passed. "Sit down, Eileen," he said, his voice steady, but laced with a tension that I could feel in my bones. "No, I'm not sitting down." I could feel the anger rising within me, bubbling up like a pot about to boil over. "I've come here to get the truth, and you're going to give it to me." He sighed, rubbing his temples as if he were weary of the game. "Eileen, you've made this more difficult than it needs to be. I've done what I had to do to protect this family." "Protect?" I shot back, my voice shaking with rage. "You've been stealing from me, using my money to fund your son's life while I've been left with nothing. How is that protecting anything?" His eyes flickered, but he didn't respond immediately. Instead, he sat back in his chair, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the desk. The silence between us was thick, suffocating, and I could feel the years of secrets pressing down on me. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "You don't understand, Eileen. This isn't about you. It never was." The words cut through me like a blade. "What do you mean it's not about me?" I demanded, my fists clenched at my sides. "You've spent my whole life making decisions for me, using me for your own benefit. Do you really think I wouldn't find out?" His gaze softened slightly, but there was no remorse in it. "I did what I thought was best. You have no idea what it takes to run this family. Quentin is my son, and I've always had to look out for him." "Look out for him? By betraying me?" I felt a wave of dizziness wash over me, the realization hitting me like a punch to the stomach. My father, my rock, my protector, had been the mastermind behind all of this. He had known everything, and he had let it happen. The shock hit me like a physical blow, and for a moment I didn't know whether to scream or cry. The tears were there, but I held them back, unwilling to show him how deeply his betrayal had cut me. But then something changed inside me. The hurt, the sadness, it was still there, but it wasn't enough to stop me anymore. I wasn't the frightened girl I had been when all of this started. I had grown stronger, sharper, and now I was ready to fight. "I know everything, Dad," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "I know about the money. I know about Quentin. I know what you did to me, and I'm done. I'm done being the victim. I'm taking control now." His eyes hardened as he stood up, his voice cold. "You don't know what you're dealing with, Eileen. You're making a huge mistake." "No," I replied, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. "The mistake was yours. You've been playing me, but now the game's over." The confrontation escalated rapidly from there. The words we exchanged were venomous, each one a wound that bled deeper than the last. He tried to defend his actions, to justify everything he had done, but nothing he said could make up for the pain he had caused. It was like trying to patch up a wound with a Band-Aid. It was too late for that. Finally, my father dropped the facade. He looked at me, his expression no longer one of control, but one of defeat. "I never wanted to hurt you, Eileen," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But you have to understand, this was always about survival, about power, about keeping things in balance." I shook my head, unable to hold back the tears anymore. "You've been lying to me my whole life, Dad. Everything we were, everything I thought I knew, is all a lie." And then, just when I thought I had everything I needed, when I thought I was on the verge of finally breaking free from the chains that had held me, he delivered the final blow. "There's more you don't know," he said, his voice cold. "It wasn't just about the money. It was about control. You've never really been in control of your life." I stood at the edge, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it, the final confrontation. Everything had led to this moment. Every lie, every betrayal, every step I'd taken. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. It was almost suffocating. Quentin, my parents, the ones who had used me and manipulated me for so long. Today they would all be held accountable. I could see the pieces of the puzzle finally coming together. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing mind. The battle wasn't over yet, but I could already taste the victory. The thought of what I had already accomplished, despite everything stacked against me, gave me a strange sense of power. But beneath that, there was also an undeniable fear. This moment could break me, or it could set me free. There was no going back now. As I walked into the courtroom, I felt the weight of every eye on me. My parents and Quentin were already there, sitting across from me, their faces a mix of defiance and guilt. The air between us crackled with anger, but this wasn't just about winning or losing anymore. This was about justice. This was about taking back what was mine. The judge called the session to order, and I steadied myself. The legal battle had been long and grueling, but I had the evidence, the truth. And now, I was ready to strike the final blow. The hours felt like days as the arguments flew back and forth. My heart raced with each passing moment, but I kept my composure. I couldn't afford to lose control now. Every word, every move had to be calculated. The evidence I had gathered, the hidden financial transactions, the lies, they were all out in the open. It was my turn now. And then, the moment came. With a single, decisive motion, I watched as the judge raised his gavel, declaring my victory. The family property, The home that had once been a symbol of everything I had believed in was now in my hands. It was the ultimate betrayal, yet it felt like a small victory. The tears that had threatened to come were held back, but the emotions surged. I had won, but at what cost? I could hear my parents and Quentin protesting, their voices filled with shock and disbelief. My father's face was as cold as ever, but I could see the tension in his jaw. My mother sat silently, her eyes wide with regret. Quentin, ever the entitled son, looked like he was about to explode. The fallout from this victory would be far more than they had bargained for. As the reality of my victory settled in, the weight of what I had done began to crush me. I had taken the property, but at the expense of my family. The people I had loved, the people who had shaped me, now they were gone. I would never get back what we had. The family I once knew was shattered beyond repair. I watched as Quentin and my mother were led out of the courtroom, their faces etched with disbelief. The anger, the bitterness, it was all there. But it wasn't just anger I saw in their eyes. It was the crushing realization that everything they had worked for, everything they had fought to control, had slipped through their fingers. Quentin stood there, his hands clenched into fists, staring at me with hatred. "You'll regret this, Eileen," he spat, his voice dripping with venom. "You've destroyed this family, and for what? Money? Power?" I didn't flinch. I had expected this, and yet it still stung. "No, Quentin," I said, my voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside me. "I didn't destroy the family. You did. You and all of them. I'm just cleaning up the mess you made." His face contorted with rage, but I turned away, not willing to let his words affect me anymore. There was no point in arguing. I had won, and now it was time to move forward. I stood there, alone, as the courtroom emptied. The victory was mine, but the emptiness that followed was suffocating. I had no family left. The price of justice had been higher than I had ever imagined. I left the courtroom, my thoughts swirling in a storm of conflicting emotions. The property was mine, but at what cost? Was this victory worth the destruction it had caused? I didn't know. I couldn't know. But one thing was certain. I was no longer the victim. I had reclaimed what was rightfully mine. The battle was over. But now, the real challenge began, finding out who I was without the chains of my past holding me back. I took a deep breath and stepped into the future, uncertain but resolute. The echo of my victory still hummed in the air, but the truth was heavier than any courtroom gavel. As the days passed, the initial rush of triumph began to fade, leaving behind a cold emptiness. I had won the battle, but the war inside me raged on. I stood at the threshold of what had once been my parents' house, my house now, and realized that the weight of what had happened was too much to bear. I had fought tooth and nail for this victory, for my independence, for the truth. But now that I had it, what was left? The house, the property, all the money, they meant nothing in the face of the family I had lost. The anger, the hurt, all the fury I had felt over the years had led me to this moment. But now that it was over, I wasn't sure what to do with the aftermath. The empty walls around me seemed to mirror the emptiness inside. The cold marble floors beneath my feet felt unforgiving, almost like the house itself was mocking me. I hadn't expected this kind of feeling, this hollow echo of victory. Standing there looking at the place I had once called home, I realized just how much had changed. The victory I had so desperately wanted didn't feel like the resolution I'd hoped for. I leaned against the doorframe, my gaze sweeping over the empty rooms. I could almost hear the sounds of the past, the laughter, the arguments, the silence after every fight. But now, it was just quiet. It was the kind of silence that felt suffocating, a reminder that the life I had known was gone, never to return. The house was mine now, but at what cost? I couldn't shake the feeling of defeat, not the kind of defeat from a battle lost, but the kind that settled deep in your chest after you fought so hard and realized that winning was never going to bring back what you had lost. I walked through the hallways, feeling like a ghost in a place that once held the warmth of family, now just a cold monument to betrayal. My eyes landed on the old family pictures that lined the walls, pictures of smiles and memories now tainted with the truth. It hit me then, the real cost of this victory. I had gained the material wealth, the validation of my fight, but the family I had known, the people I had loved, were gone. They had betrayed me in ways I never thought possible. My father, my brother, and even my mother, each of them had played a part in tearing us apart. Their greed had consumed them, and now the damage was irreversible. I sat down in the empty living room, the place where we had once gathered for dinners and holidays. My thoughts spiraled. The legal battle was over, but the emotional scars were still fresh, still raw. I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me, suffocating me in a way that no victory could ever ease. For years I had fought for the truth, for justice. But now that I had it, the truth didn't heal the wounds. The justice didn't bring back the years of love and family I had lost. There was no band-aid for betrayal. There was no remedy for the ache in my chest as I faced the reality of my broken family. As I sat there in the dark, I knew I couldn't go back to the past. It was over. My family was broken beyond repair, and nothing could change that. But what did the future hold for me now? Where would I go from here? The question hung in the air like a dark cloud, and I realized that this was only the beginning. Yes, I had won. Yes, I had secured my independence. But the future was a blank slate, and I wasn't sure what to do with it. I had spent so many years fighting for justice, but now that I had it, what was next? I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't return to the past. But could I move forward, knowing that every step I took would be marked by the loss of everything I once held dear? Would I find peace, or would the weight of everything that had happened crush me under its enormity? The horizon was there, waiting for me, but it was shrouded in uncertainty. I could feel the weight of the future pressing on me, its potential both terrifying and exhilarating. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew that no matter what, I would face it head-on. I had no other choice. As I reflect on everything I've been through, I want to leave you with this. Life will throw challenges at you that will seem impossible to overcome, and the people closest to you might betray you in ways you never imagined. But no matter how tough things get, remember that your strength lies within you. It's okay to feel pain, to grieve what you've lost, but never let it define you. You are more than the hardships you face. I've learned that justice isn't always about the victory itself, but how you rise from the ashes. It's about reclaiming your power, moving forward, and refusing to let the past dictate your future. The scars will remain, but they'll serve as reminders of your resilience, of how far you've come. So let's take this journey together. What's your story? What's holding you back from living your truth? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you found some inspiration in this story, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Let's keep this conversation going, and don't miss out on the next chapter. If you didn't connect with this video, let me know why and where you're tuning in from. I want to hear from you. Stay strong, keep fighting, and remember, you're never alone in your journey.